In the early chapters of Luke, Luke outlines the message and the mission of Jesus, and that's what he's continuing to do in chapter 5. And Luke now gives to us an important insight into Jesus' methodology for transforming the world. Jesus' plan for transformation is going to be built on the principle of multiplication. Reading this story reminds me of that annoying math riddle that you had in middle school. You probably know the one. If you had a choice between receiving $10,000 a day for 30 days straight or getting 1 penny on the first day and then having that penny doubled each day for 30 days, which of those two would you choose? Well, like most middle school students, I chose to receive the $10,000 daily. I mean, think about it. How much could I do with $10,000 a day? On just the first day, I could buy several pairs of Air Jordans and every video game available for the Atari 2600. And just on the first day, after 2 weeks, I would even have enough to buy one of those DeLoreans like Michael J. Fox drove in Back to the Future. When the 30 days were over, I would have received $300,000. But then my math teacher explained that I should have started with the penny that doubled every day. Sure, after the first week, I'd only have a couple of bucks, but by the end of the month, I would have $10,737,418.23. That math riddle illustrates the power of multiplication. And it's the idea behind Jesus' strategy for starting his movement. Look at Luke chapter 5, verse 1. As the crowd was pressing in on Jesus to hear God's word, Jesus was standing by Lake Gennesaret. That's, by the way, another name for the Sea of Galilee. He saw 2 boats at the edge of the lake. The fishermen had left them and were washing their nets. Jesus got into one of the boats, which belonged to Simon. That was the Apostle Peter's birth name. And he asked him to put out a little from the land. That was going to serve 2 purposes. First, it's going to give Jesus a little distance from all those who were clamoring to touch him or take a selfie with him or whatever. And second, water serves as a natural amplifier. Have you ever stood on a boat and on a quiet lake and yelled at somebody across the water? It's amazing how your voice carries. By the way, these are more of those little details that Luke includes that reveal that these are just eyewitness accounts, not myths or legends, because myths and legends in those days were just not written with this kind of detail. Verse 4, when he had finished speaking, Jesus said to Simon, "Put out into the deep water and let down your nets for a catch." "But Master," Simon replied, respectfully, but for sure with a little bit of irritation in his voice, "we've worked hard all night long. We caught nothing. But if you say so, I'll let down the nets." You see, what Jesus had said here had to be a little bit insulting. I mean, Peter was a professional fisherman. He knew when the fish weren't biting. Jesus telling him just to give it one more toss felt condescending. But out of respect for Jesus, Peter did it. And verse 6, when they did this, they caught a great number of fish, so many that their nets began to tear. So they signaled to their partners in the other boat to come and help them. They came and filled both boats so full that they began to sink. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' feet and he said, "Go away from me, because I am a sinful man, Lord." "Don't be afraid," Jesus told Simon. "From now on, you will be catching people." "This is what I really intend for you, Peter. I want you to join me in my mission." Then they brought the boats to land, they left everything, and they followed him. In these 11 verses, Jesus reveals 3 necessary qualities to be his disciple. 3 qualities that will produce a multiplying movement after Jesus is gone. Number 1 is a sense of awe. Look again at verse 8. When Simon Peter saw this, he fell at Jesus' knees and he said, "Get away from me, because I'm a sinful man, Lord." That might seem like an odd reaction until you think about it. You see, when you're truly in the presence of greatness, you feel both attracted and repelled. You're not sure if you want to draw close or run away. You're filled with a sense of wonder and a sense of fear. Peter was so overcome with awe and wonder that he wanted to be close to Jesus, but he felt so small and unworthy in Jesus' presence that he couldn't even speak. He just says, get away from me, Lord. I'm not worthy to be around you." That sense of awe is going to become the secret of Peter's obedience. Listen, whenever God calls people to follow him, he often begins with this kind of vision. It's what Isaiah saw when God called him to be a prophet. Isaiah responds to that vision by saying, "Woe is me, for I'm a man of unclean lips." It's what the Apostle John saw when Jesus gave him that vision for the book of Revelation. The sight of Jesus in glory made John fall on his face like a dead man. You see, without this sense of awe, you'll never have the ability to obey. In fact, if I could be so bold, a lack of awe might be why some of you struggle to obey right now. I once was invited to lead a Bible study for some Christians in one of the fraternities at UNC Chapel Hill, which is located not far from our church. They wanted me to do this Bible study on sexual temptation. And so as I was leading this study for these fraternity guys, I told them that sexual temptations were completely controllable. And in fact, they could turn them on and off like a light switch. You should have seen the look on the faces of those 19-year-old fratties when I said that. One of them actually was like, "Bro, that is absolutely insane." I said, "I'll prove it to you." I said, say you're at your girlfriend's house and things are getting serious. One thing's leading to another. I don't know what y'all call it now because I'm not cool anymore. But when I was in college, it had something to do with a baseball diamond. But things are progressing and your desires are at their strongest point. And one of them said, "Yep, that's what I'm talking about. At that point, there's no way to turn back." I said, okay, now imagine that at just that moment when you feel like there's no turning back, that's the moment when in walks that girl's Navy SEAL father who has just returned from his tour of duty in Afghanistan. Off like a light switch. And they all just kind of stared at me silently for a moment, and then one turned to his friend and said, "Yeah, that's kind of a good point." I said, "Well, what happened at that moment? Did your sexual desires just evaporate?" No, your strong desires for her were brought under the control of an even stronger desire, specifically the desire to stay alive, to keep your limbs attached to your torso. An awe over her dad's strength brought your other desires under control. Does that make sense? I then told them the problem is not that your sexual desires are too strong. It's that your awe of Jesus is so small. Ultimately, obedience problems are awe problems. Until Jesus is big to you, bigger than everything else in the universe, you'll never have the strength to obey him. So you need to ask the Holy Spirit to experience what Peter experienced here, to make Jesus real and awesome and glorious in your eyes, because only then will you be able to follow him all the way. Here's the second quality of the disciples Jesus is calling. It's acceptance of Jesus's mission. This is verse 10. "Don't be afraid," Jesus told Simon. "From now on, you will be catching people." Not just following me, but you're going to be catching people. I want you to notice there's no time gap between Peter's initial call to follow Jesus and his call into the mission. Because to follow Jesus means to join him in his mission immediately. Sometimes we treat a calling into ministry like it's this kind of mystical secondary experience that only a few super Christians receive. I always call this the Cheerios method of discovering the will of God. The idea that if God really wants to use you in ministry, he'll stage some mystical, magical moment like spelling out a message for you in your Cheerios. Be a missionary or write worship music or something like that. And otherwise, all he wants you to do is go to church, be a good person, try to pay attention and pay your tithes. That view of how God calls people, that's a myth. First, I will tell you, I have stared at my Cheerios for years, and all they've ever spelled out to me is "ooh" over and over and over again. Second, the call to engage in the mission was actually included in the call to follow Jesus. "Follow me," Jesus said, "and from now on, you'll be catching people." You see, there is no such thing as a Christian who is not called to ministry. That is, not called to make other disciples. Jesus doesn't just call disciples, he calls disciple-making disciples. So the question is no longer if you're called. The question now is only where and how you're called. It's like a friend of mine says, Jesus did not save you so he could sanctify you and set you on his sacred shelf. He saved you to send you into service. There's no such thing as a Christian who is not called to participate in the Great Commission. If you truly are a follower of Jesus, he has commissioned you to the mission. Which leads me to the third quality that Jesus identifies for his disciples, and that is total surrender. Look at verse 11. "Then they brought the boats to land. They left everything and they followed him." Fishing, of course, was their livelihood. Fishing was how they provided for themselves, and they had to leave that and their father's house, which means their security, behind in order to follow Jesus. That required an incredible amount of trust. This is going to be a recurring theme throughout Luke, and that is the need for total surrender. It's where many would-be disciples will falter. So let me just ask you, have you ever fully taken your hands off of your life and just said, "Jesus, it's all yours. I'll follow you whenever and wherever, without condition and without restrictions"? I want you to let Peter's fisherman's net represent your life, how you intend to make your livelihood, what you want out of life. Have you ever spread the net of your life out before Jesus and said, "Jesus, what do you want to put in this? What do you want from all this? I'm putting it here on the ground before you. you fill it with whatever you want. You see, Jesus wants to fill that net of your life with things of eternal significance. And by the way, isn't that what you really want out of life? To live a life that matters, a life that makes an eternal difference and counts for eternity? The title of this session is that Jesus seeks disciples, not just Christians, because that's what we see Jesus is after here in Luke 5 when he calls his first followers. So let me end this session with a question. You consider yourself a Christian, but have you actually become a disciple? Have you laid down your life, the net of your life? Have you laid it down in total surrender to Jesus and just embraced the mission to become a disciple-making disciple? Many of us would say we're Christians, but did you know that none of the early followers of Jesus called themselves by that name? In fact, the word Christian only appears in the New Testament 3 times. 3 times. Disciple, however, is used more than 250 times. More than 250 times. Disciple is the label that early believers used to describe themselves. You say, well, JD, big deal. Who cares what we call ourselves? Well, here's why it's a big deal. I want to suggest that in changing the primary word that we use to describe ourselves, we might have lost the clarity that the word disciple conveys about what a follower of Jesus actually is. You see, for many of us, Christian functions more like a sociological label. It signifies what you believe or a set of morals that you've adopted, and that's important. But becoming a follower of Jesus is about more than changing your beliefs or adopting some morals. Becoming a Christian is about total surrender to Jesus and embracing his mission. You see, back in those days, lots of rabbis had disciples. Young students would choose some rabbi they wanted to be like, and they would follow them. They'd learn everything they taught and imitate their every move. Historians say that the highest compliment you could give a disciple in those days was to say to him, the dust of your rabbi is all over you. When you said that didn't mean, hey, bro, you're dirty, you need to take a shower. No, saying the dust of your rabbi is all over you meant that you were following your rabbi so closely and imitating him so carefully. Whatever he stepped in splashed up on you. Jesus didn't call Christians to adopt a set of beliefs or embrace a set of morals only. He called followers who would go where he went and do what he did. I want to suggest that by replacing the word disciple with the word Christian as our primary identifier, we've obscured the fact that a lot of people who call themselves Christians aren't actually Jesus's followers. Listen, you might call yourself a Christian, but are you a disciple? Because see, that's Jesus's plan for growing his kingdom. You know, it's interesting, historian Rodney Stark suggests that at the end of the 1st century, when the last apostle died, there were fewer than 8,000 total believers in the world, which is kind of small when you think about it. And yet within just a few generations, by the time we get to 300 AD, nearly half of the entire Roman Empire confessed Christ as Savior. We're talking millions and millions of people. Rodney Stark asks, how did that happen? Especially when you consider that these believers didn't have any of the stuff that we think today is necessary for church growth. They didn't have money or buildings or printing presses or influential people in the Senate. Rodney Stark says that it's true they had none of those things, but the one thing they did have that we often don't was the power of multiplication. Every follower of Jesus understood it was their duty to make disciples. They weren't simply trying to get converts or make Christians. They were calling disciples. Disciples who would follow Jesus and make other disciples. Disciples who would perpetuate the mission. Multiplication, you see, that's what's at the heart of the Great Commission. A disciple is someone who is in awe of Jesus, engaged in the mission, and totally surrendered to him. So I ask you one more time. You say you're a Christian, but are you a disciple? Maybe it's time for you to go from being a mere Christian to being a real disciple. Are you ready to make that transition?